In today's video, I'm going to be talking about relationships. So specifically, if couples therapy works. Hi, I'm Casey Lepper, and I help you overcome anything that gets in the way of creating the life you want. I've been a couples therapist and coach for over 10 years, as well as been in a wonderful marriage with plenty of ups and downs and lessons for over 10 years as well. So I'll be sharing a little insight as a professional, but also personally to help you understand whether couples therapy or coaching works and if it's right for you. So let's talk couples therapy. First, there's a stigma related to therapy that it means something's wrong or broken. The best couples therapy can really happen before much has gone wrong. When maybe you uncover a little pattern that's less than ideal and you get a third party to help you see it in a really objective way. And once you see it, you can start to correct it before it's become really well worn. The average years that a couple comes in after problems have started is 7. So 7 years of building a maladaptive negative pattern is when someone's ready to come invest and get another perspective about what's not going right. And so if you're watching this and you've been in a relationship for a long time and something's not working, you have to ask, is it not the right relationship? Are these problems fixable? And if these problems are fixable, what's the holdup with getting another person's perspective to help you see if you can overcome them? Don't wait 7 years. That being said, I've had couples who've come in after 20 or 25 years. It takes more effort to really pull everything apart. It takes a longer time to try to cement those new dynamics and patterns, because think, how long did it take to create the pattern? How long is it going to take to deconstruct it? Not as long as it took to correct, but it's harder. So couples therapy is an amazing investment that you can do just to make sure you're both continuously growing together. So it's never too late to get a perspective about what things can improve. And maybe it's a great relationship that only has a couple bumps in a road. And if you just seek to find someone that you both are open with, that you both have a level of trust with, that you believe can help you grow, then just building the container of couples therapy can be helpful, because you know that if something goes wrong in your day-to-day life, you have someone that you can go to help readjust or realign, recorrect what's not going right. So research shows that when both couples are open to the process, that means there's not one person pulling the other along. Both people have to have a level of commitment, open to being challenged, and open to change for couples therapy to work. So if you're attached to someone right now and they're not into it, don't waste the money. But if you're at that part, ask yourself, why am I still in a relationship with someone who's not looking to improve with me? So the great thing about couples therapy is that you can start to see positive change almost immediately. Given that you found a therapist who has an approach that you like, where you feel like there's mutual respect and some basis of a good relationship. If you don't feel a vibe, that you don't feel a connection with the person that you're sharing intimate parts of your life with, then it's a sign you might need to find someone else who you can more clearly communicate with. Just like a friend, some people you meet and you click with immediately, I think that the same hope is for your couples therapist or your individual therapist. You want to be able to feel like there's some understanding, that they get you, that they understand your world. Another thing that is really helpful about couples therapy is you have someone who can point out the miscommunications, the mistranslations, and the sources of all conflict. So if I'm sitting in front of a couple and I notice they're talking, and usually I just sit back and I notice the interaction, you can start to see how much miscommunication really happens. One person has heard them say something else, and they're starting to spin, they're creating a narrative, their ego is attached, and as a result, good communication spirals out of control and it becomes a full-blown conflict. When you're working with a therapist or a coach, they're able to show you what the patterns are And when you see that pattern, you're able to take that with you and you're able to notice, oh, they're not actually listening to me. Or, oh, I said that word that's really immediately triggering to them. Being able to see how communication breaks down is really important, because when we have good communication, we're less likely to get into really deep fights over and over. So if you're not really listening to each other, if you're not understanding each other, and worse, you don't know that you're not understanding each other, it can lead to exhaustive fights that just feel like they bleed over into every other area of your life. So having someone to stand back, to acknowledge and course correct what communication patterns are happening, and as a result, how conflict can be better managed, is such an invaluable resource. It's so good to see a mirror. And when you find a therapist that you both connect with, you can understand that dynamic really early on. It doesn't take a lot of time to uncover how a couple's communicating and why that might be benefiting the relationship or hurting the relationship. A third aspect of couples therapy is that it allows you to build a catalog of how you share love, affection, attention, and how you build your relationship. So not the romantic, sensual side of your relationship, but more the bedrock of your relationship, which is how you're friends, how you relate to each other. When both partners are committed to growing, sometimes we have to, what I call, update the software. So a lot of times we think about our partner, how they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and we just have this similar narrative about them and we never update it. And as a result, we're thinking about them in terms of who they were when they were in their 20s or when they're in their 30s, and we're not seeing the person right in front of us. So when you engage with couples coaching or therapy, you can really start to learn how best to support who they are now, how best to admire who they are now. Being able to understand, what do I need now versus then? So you have a container where you can continuously update the way you share affection, you share intimacy, you share your fondness and admiration with each other. Because if you're in a relationship long term, you have to consistently update it. Who I am now is not even who I was 2 years ago. And by having a space where I can say, I know when we first met, I cared about this, but I don't care about this now. I care about that. And when you have someone who can ask you those questions, when they can engage in some of these deeper understandings, and how that understanding can then create more connection with the relationship, it's such a beautiful byproduct of couples work. A lot of couples come into therapy because they don't want to fight as much. They want to have better communication and they want to improve their intimacy. But as a result, you're also working on the bedrock of your relationship, which is your friendship, which is how you show up for each other every single day. Another reason why couples therapy works is it gives you accountability. So it's very different having the same fight over and over in the privacy of your own house. But if you know you have a therapy or coaching appointment that week, and you think we have to tell him or her that we've had the same fight over and over, it creates a much different energy. Think about when you're working out alone versus when you're working out in front of a trainer. I don't know about you, but for me, if someone's watching me, I'm going to push myself a little harder. I think that's just psychological tendency I think a lot of us have. When you know that someone has the vision for what you want the relationship to be, who understands where you've come from and where you want to go, and knows what you've worked on, the ups and downs, the skills, they hold you accountable. And through that accountability, you hold yourself to a higher standard. So couples therapy isn't about needing the therapist in order to continue to grow. It's about building a structure so when you're outside of the therapy session, you feel like you can continue to move upward and onward, that you're not just staying down at ground level because you can't get over the resentment, you can't get over the pain, or you can't get over the miscommunication problems. A final point of couples therapy and why it works is that it helps you heal if you have not healed. When you have a really skilled couples therapist, they recognize that everything you bring into the relationship is a reflection of what's going on within the individual partners. So if I come into couples therapy and I haven't worked on healing my attachment to my dad, I'm going to get some distortion that comes up with my husband. And so what that might look like is a lot of fights, bad communication, not connecting, not being intimate. But the root is much deeper. And so if you're working with a couples therapist and they notice the same fight happen over and over, dressed in different ways, but the core root is the same, they're not only figuring out what that root is, they're giving you the most powerful insight into what needs to be healed. I have a belief that we get into a relationship for many reasons, but one being that they serve as our reflection point. They tell us, show us, reflect to us, trigger us, and show us what we need to work on. And so if you're just letting that reflection, if you're letting your ego take it, then it's always going to turn into a fight. But if you're looking at it and you have the work or the support or the accountability or the therapist or coach who can say, this is showing you you have not healed the past, and you go in and heal it, then it is going to improve your relationship tenfold. It's going to change everything. And so much of what couples work is not just building our communication, our conflict management, our shared vision, our intimacy. It's also giving the best structure for you to understand what you still need to work on and how that past pain or that unresolved wound or trauma is actually preventing the relationship from moving forward. So couples therapy can be so beneficial at not just helping you feel the best in your relationship, but also beyond. Because if the relationship is allowing you both to move forward and create your shared life together, and one person is kind of holding it back, being able to have a professional sit in front of you to see it, to understand it, and help you course correct is truly invaluable. So if you're in a relationship and it's early on and you think it's too early, it's never too early. That doesn't mean you have to go every week. It means find someone that you want to build a relationship with, create that container so when things do come up, it's either more maintenance, skill building, or resolving or healing, or you have someone in a safe space that you both respect and trust that can help you move with the hard parts. There's a lot of couples I've worked with that I started when they were engaged, and then they had children and then lost jobs, and being able to have a touchstone, a touch point that can see you through some of the hardship is one really, really beautiful feature of couples. And if you're watching this and you've been in a relationship for many years and there's a pattern that's not working, with the right therapist and the right commitment, you can overcome anything if you both want to. And so it's never too late, but don't keep putting it on the back burner if it's been many years. Like I said, average is 7 years after problems have started. Think about how different life could be if you just resolved that problem at the get-go. So it's never too late, but don't continue to be resistant to change.